This is part 14 of the ongoing AS and A-level Java series, and in this episode we are going to be looking at the do-while loop. So I know I promised that we'd look at the for loop in this episode, but I just realized that we need to first look at the do-while before we can look at the while loop. So at the for loop. So let's go ahead and create the main method for this particular program. And within the main method, let's just declare the previous values that we had going on in the episode of the while loop. So let's have a value called counter, and we'll set it to 0 just as before, and we have another value called limit, and we'll set it to 10 again. Then we will begin our do while loop right here. So in order for you to start a do while loop, you just write the keyword do followed by parentheses. Then inside of the parentheses you're going to have the statements that you want to execute. So we want to simply system.out.println, and we simply want to print the counter right there. Then after the closing parenthesis for the do body, we then put our while. Then we say counter is less than or equal to limit, right? Then we terminate right there. So what we need to do inside the body of the do is we actually need to increment the counter. So we can go about it using the shorthand plus equal to 1. So basically this is a shorthand way of writing counter equal counter plus 1. So you can just say counter plus equal to 1, and it's still going to work. I think I might have mentioned this in maybe previous tutorials, I think, if I'm not mistaken, but if I didn't mention it, well, there it is. Alright, so let's just go ahead and run the code and see that in action. So you realize that the output is exactly the same as before, right? We are simply going to get the values from 0 all the way up to 10, right? And this is how the do while loop works. It's going to do something, right? So something that we want it to do in this case is we simply want it to output the value of counter, and you remember that the value of counter is 0 initially, so it's going to output 0 before it increments counter by 1. So the only difference between the do while and the while loop is that the do while is something that we call a post condition loop, whereas the while loop is a pre-condition loop. Let me just open the while loop code right here in this window. So you realize that with the while loop we are first checking to see if counter is less than or equal to limit, right? But with the do, we are first executing this code, then we check after that one. So this one we call it a post condition loop, whereas the while loop is a pre-condition loop. We first check the condition before we can do anything, whereas with a do while loop we first do something then check the condition. So that's the only difference between a while and a do while loop. Then again, it's important to also notice that there's a danger for creating an infinite loop with a do while if you do not have this counter right here, right? So that's something that you always need to be careful about, right? But other than that, I think that's just about it for the do while loop, and that just does it for this tutorial. I'll see you in the next one.